It is day 12. Good morning. On our sheet, we're at the last part. We're going to make sure we get you the next information. I'll put it up on the thread on the page here, so that we can have our plans for tomorrow, so that you know that. But today's day 12, and it is a awesome time of study, if you will. I'm very, very excited about this word that I'm receiving from God here. Um, Day 12, we're talking about vision, a clearer and brighter vision. That's the whole goal. We're believing God for it. We're believing that God is revealing to us what He has for us, not just in this year, but knowing the mood, the focus, where He's directing us to according to His purpose. I think year after year we kind of get into our own thing, and we work and we make this money and we try to accomplish a lot of stuff, and we get into our own focus, our own thing, and we miss what we're actually here to do. So we're asking God not just for a new beginning, but for a clearer and brighter vision. Now, some of us need a new beginning and need to start over and need to know who we are and why we're here and where we're going. Some of us have it. Some of us very clear and have heard God spoke, but then sometimes things get cloudy and we can lose our focus. We can lose our focus because the enemy causes distractions. In those distractions, we kind of wander off into these other things, and we put our attention to the things. It's very common when you hear people speak, and especially if you're in a Christian community where there's pastors preaching or people talking, we talk about what the enemy's doing. We talk about all the distractions. I even made mention of it yesterday when we're getting halfway, the enemy starting to do all these different things. But in those moments are the time it is important that we refocus. I know what the scriptures, we only have like 2 scriptures. I've been doing them one by one to kind of take it slow, to kind of see how God is moving, what He was doing in the life, and specifically in Jeremiah. But it's so powerful if we grab hold to it, because it's repeated through the Bible. From every person that He began to put out of His prophets, it's repeated. And when they encounter God and get their vision and understand their purpose, they kind of go through the same process. They hear a word, don't quite believe it, they doubt it for themselves, and then God has to encourage them, and He leaves it with another word. He says, and I'll be with you. And so we're going to get into that. Let's kind of actually look and see exactly what the Bible says here in Jeremiah 1. And I think the first part of it is 9. God is doing something with Jeremiah. We've already had a walk through it, and He was trying to get him to believe and not be afraid, and especially in verse 8 when it says, don't be afraid of their faces. And He told him, He said, I'm with thee. So we talked about it yesterday. And here it is on verse 9. It says, then the Lord put forth. I apologize. I said verse 9, so I think it's actually verse 12. Yep, I apologize. So we did 9 yesterday. So verse 12 says this. It says, then said the Lord unto me. Guys, I apologize. I'm looking at this because He's supposed to say, what do you see? And He asked him that. He asked him, what do you see? And verse 11 says, moreover, the word of the Lord came unto me, saying, Jeremiah, what seest thou? And I said, I see a rod of an almond tree. That's where I was looking. So that I was looking at it, and I was looking at all my notes and everything. But here's the word, and I put it down on my notes. I apologize. He asked him in verse 11. He said, what do you see? Moreover, the word of the Lord came unto me, saying, Jeremiah, what seest thou? And then Jeremiah specifically just told him exactly what he saw. He said, I see the rod of an almond tree. I want to just stop there before we get into 12 and look at that question. The question is, what do you see? Right there is the vision that God had already placed in him, and he's gonna break it down here in a minute. But he asked him, "What do you see?" I think that many of us have got caught up into some different things, and our focus, like I said before, can be on something that the enemy is doing, and we're constantly seeing the attack, and it's a lot of negativity, and we get caught there. There's some of us who have been praying, and we're focusing in, and we get a word from God, and we're seeing this, and we're moving forward, and we are trying, and then different things, that different demands and different pulls come up on you, and we're still trying to walk through it. But now we're asking God for a clearer and brighter vision. And so the question is a loaded question. When God says, what do you see? When he asks that, he kind of gets into actually really a simple word: focus. And when you are looking and you're identifying what's in front of you, and you look at, it's important for us to write it down, because especially no matter what it is, what you're going through now, write it down. No, this is important, because even if it's in a negative state, it's clear that you would have to see it to recognize that you're out of focus. I'm sorry, guys. I want to make sure I get this, because it's so critical. When you are honest with yourself and you can write down what you see, it can tell you what you're focusing in on. And if you can identify what you're focusing in on, you can make the necessary correction to be able to get the right focus. I remember being at the doctor, and the doctor would do that, and they'll ask me to look and say, how does this look? Can you see it? Can you see these letters, or can you see it? And then they will have the machine in, and then they will refocus and do it. And I go, so now what do you see? and then it gets a little clearer, like, oh yeah, okay, that was an A. I'm sorry, I can see it clearly now, because it's been refocused. And I believe that if you write it down, whatever's going on right now, just write it. Now, once you do that, I want you to stop and then to rewrite it. Now look by the Spirit and say, what do I see? By the Spirit, what do I see? And then begin to write that down. I feel like it's to be that both ways, because you need to see your present state of focus, and then you need it to be retuned, made clear, so that you can see the actual place where God wants you. Because we see by the Spirit. We don't walk by the flesh. We don't walk by natural eyes. We walk by faith. And we walk according to the Spirit. And he will make all things clear. He makes all things new. But he makes it all clear, and we can refocus. Let me give you stories too. One has to do with negativity, and one has to do with just kind of a sight. There's a story that talks about two young men who were in college, and they were going to a I don't know where it was, somewhere in, I feel like it was Indonesia, somewhere very poor country is wherever it was. And these young men were impacted. I don't know if it was for a school trip, because they were in college and they were going to just see the world, or whatever the case may be. But these two young men went to this third world country, and they were moved, they were touched, and because there were all these people and a lot of young people, and the two guys were there together, and they saw the same thing. They saw the same thing. One guy looked and he said, look at all these people. They're so poor. And it was sad. And he was like, I just don't believe. They just poor, all the kids. The issue is their feet, they don't even have shoes. They were walking around and they don't have any shoes. And he was just like, what is this? Is sad. And the other guy was looking and he said, look at all these people. They're poor, but they don't have any shoes. All these people, they don't have any shoes. Both men were there at the same place and they saw the same thing. When they went home, one guy was telling everybody, oh, this is so sad. And he tried to get money and he was trying to send some money back to help people. And his heart was pouring out. The other guy comes back and he just couldn't get over it either. He was like, man, there was all these people and they didn't have any shoes. And began to think. He said, but you know what? They made money. They worked hard and they had money, but they just didn't have any shoes. And he began to draw out a little simple shoe made with plastic. And then he talked to somebody else and who had a friend who did manufacturing, who gave him a prototype. And he said, what do you think about this? And the guy created the shoe. And he's like, yeah, if you get all these and get some money, you can get those over there and sell them for $5. That could work. You can make a lot of money. And so the guy did. He worked. He talked to a couple of people. And they began to create these little plastic or rubbery shoes. And they shipped them to Indonesia because he saw that they didn't have any shoes. Now, why am I telling you the story? I'm telling you the story because two men were at the same place and they saw the same thing. Or did they? One person looked at it and was very moved by compassion and felt sad. But the other person looked at it and said, wait a minute, this is an opportunity here. And I'm serving the need. These people need shoes. They just can't afford the shoes they have over there. What if I created something where they will have shoes and be able to be healthy? The whole thing, why people would need shoes. And so he started an industry and became a very, very wealthy based on what he saw. All right. Now, why I'm telling you that story again is because you can look at a situation and you can see some negative, sad things out of it. Or you can look at it by the Spirit and you can see an opportunity to be a blessing. That right there is everything. And you have to have the right attitude. You have to be positive. You have to be confident. You have to see it by the Spirit and move in it. There's another thing, because I think that a lot of times we get people who are just have a negative eye. Is a quick story that I like to share when I think about it. Talking about two kids. One was really, really happy. He just loved everything. Just so positive. And you have another kid who was just always negative, just always complaining. I always had a problem. So the people who were with him, and they were like, look, I don't know what this is. There may be something to this. So they took the kid who was always negative, and they put him in a room with candy. And it was just a whole bunch of candy, right? And this is a story. And they took the other kid, and they took him and put him in a barn that was filled with a lot of horse manure, right? And so they let him sit there for a time, and then they came back to see how they would respond. And I went to the room with the kid with the candy, and they asked him, well, hey, how you feeling about this? And the kid was like, man, you got all this candy, but man, my teeth is going to be rotting. I don't even want it because it's going to make me sick. This isn't good. This is bad. This isn't always good, right? And then it's like, okay, there's a while, Then they go to the room with the boy with the horse manure, and he was singing. And they went in there and they were just blown away. And the little boy was in there and he had a shovel and he was just, digging and singing and digging and singing. And they were like, wait a minute. What's going on? What are you doing? And the little boy said, well, I'm in here because clearly I have a pony. Because with all of this horse manure, there has to be a pony in here somewhere. Yeah. I want you to begin to look at whatever God is showing you by the Spirit and see God in it. It doesn't matter if it's negative. It doesn't matter if it doesn't look good. What you have to know is no matter what, God has a blessing for you. What do you see? Now watch this. I was excited about verse 12. Verse 12 says this. Then the Lord said unto me, Thou hast seen well, for I will hasten my word to perform it. I believe that when you write down and know and see by the Spirit, God is going to do just that for you. The very word hasten means to move quickly. It's to cause things to happen even before when it otherwise would. It says to cause to happen sooner than it otherwise would. When we begin to see through the eyes of God and write it down, knowing our purpose, He is faithful to perform it.